So before working any further in Dreamweaver, I should introduce it to you and tell you a little bit about what it does. It writes HTML so you don't have to. Now, I will be showing you mostly how to work in code view. There'll be times where I'll have you do something in design view, but even in code view, where you're hand coding most of the things yourself, it will help you quite a bit. It'll give you prompts. So it's nice because of that. So if you don't remember the exact syntax or you don't remember an option, it does that. It prompts you to help get things right for you. It kind of, especially if you're in the design view, behaves like a word processing program where you can kind of insert images and say, oh, that's a header, or I want this font or that font. I really want you working with it in code view though, because when you work with it in design view, there's a lot of control you lose, and that's where I think a lot of developers will tell you, oh, I don't like working in Dreamweaver because it does things I don't want it to do. Well, that happens if you're in design view more than if you're in code view. Now Dreamweaver, Adobe is constantly adding features that are really nice that are in design view. But this is a beginning class. I want you to understand how to control the code from the very beginning. Later, as you become more advanced, that's when you might want to use this or that visual tool to help you with certain things that might hang you up or just might be more efficient to do with their visual tool that doesn't cause excess code. So if you, oh, the other thing it'll do is when you're in visual mode or you see visual mode, it will try to show you how things are going to look in the browser. So the browser, the rendering that it does is pretty accurate, but I am typically previewing everything I'm doing in a browser. I want to see it in the actual thing that it's going to be viewed in. People are not using Dreamweaver to view websites. So it does a good job. It gives you a fair approximation of it. It does a much better job with each version, each new version that comes out, but still viewing your stuff in a browser as frequently as possible and checking the other browsers. I mentioned using Firefox, but also checking it in Chrome and Internet Explorer and all of that stuff. That's really important, and you need to do that as frequently, as you can, as you remember, to see what's happening so you can avoid problems before you get to the end of a project and realize something's really, really off. If you are looking at things in design view, Dreamweaver is creating code behind the scenes. So when you go into code view, you'll see the code that it creates for you. And some people like to have it do that. And there'll be some things where I'm like, here, just do this, and it'll write the code. And it's, there's just very limited things that it does that I know are just going to be so much easier for you to do from the beginning. So there'll be a couple of things where I'll actually have you do things visually, and you'll be able to see it write the code because we'll have the code view open at the same time. So we are going to look a bit at the Dreamweaver interface. Up here is what's known as the application toolbar, and this is where most actions can be executed. Mostly throughout the semester, if anything, I'm maybe using the file and the site menu, the window menu, mostly just to reset the layout. There are things in here, I might use it when we talk about tables, I might use it at certain points. Modify, I use once in a while. You don't have to memorize these menus. Please don't. I want you to focus on actually doing, and you'll see that there's certain things you use again and again and again, and those are the things you should know the most about. Your workspace is this area here. And we already talked about in the last video about using the designer layout, and that'll keep us all on the same path. Then there's these panels over here, and in particular I use the insert panel the most. Well, I shouldn't say the most. There's the insert panel, the CSS styles, and the files panel, sometimes the assets. Those are the things that I am frequently in. CSS styles, I think, would be the number one thing once we get into CSS, which will be in a couple of weeks, and then we never leave it. Files is critical. You need to see that, and we'll be talking about files shortly. And then the insert panel, there's certain things in here that it can insert for you quite easily, so we'll be using it, especially like with forms and when we get to doing templates. The last thing I want to cover in here is the vertical split view. So I'm going to, and you go ahead and follow along with me, do File, New, and we're just going to choose blank HTML page for a moment. Now, we'll talk about these views throughout the semester, but there is a design view, a code view, and then there is a split view. I use the split view most frequently. Now, you'll see that I have a vertical split view. If you're not seeing a vertical split view, then you just go up to right here under Layout. For Code and Design, we want to choose Split Vertically. If you prefer the design view on the left, you can do that. I do not work that way. I work with the code view on the left. So this is how it will look like what I'm doing. But that's all you need to do to get the vertical split view, which is something that happened, it might have been Dreamweaver 5. And it is the most wonderful thing on the planet, because before this it did all the split view like so, and I never used split view. Now I use split view the majority of the time. It's a wonderful thing. So that is where we'll leave it. In the next video we will continue working through features in the interface.